I think it's a pretty good time to update my moveset recommendations for Pokemon Unite. We just had the balance patch, and as people get more time on Pokemon, less obvious moveset combinations have started to rise up and become more optimal, so we can get into that when we talk about the Pokemon, and that's really all there is to it. The video is pretty straightforward. I just want to knock these out as soon as possible because, unlike the first time I did the video, we understand what the moves do pretty well right now, so I just want to go, hey, try this out, this seems like the best thing to do. So if you end up enjoying the video, or it helps in any way, don't forget to leave a like, share it with your friends, and comment your moveset thoughts down below. Let's get into Absol. I still think that Pursuit Sucker Punch is the best way to go, and Sucker Punch just got buffed, so you're going to feel a little bit more damage on this combo, especially if you're getting resets. It could make the difference. So Psycho Cut was unchanged, but I don't think it was the best move to pick because Absol is supposed to be a very high mobility assassin, and for Psycho Cut, you have to stand there and swipe it, so that does leave you vulnerable to CC and stuff like that. Maybe the priority that players were putting on Psycho Cut could have led to the underperformance that led to a Sucker Punch buff, but overall, Pursuit Sucker Punch, just a really nice combo. Night Slash, also receiving a significant buff in damage, but it can be tricky to use, and if you miss it, you just completely fall flat because now you're missing out on resets, more damage, and it's just kind of an awkward move to use. So there is more reward to using it and mastering it with this damage buff, but Pursuit is just really free, really crazy mobility. Next up, we have Charizard, and the cool thing about Charizard is both Flamethrower and Fire Punch were buffed, so no matter which one you pick of these two, you are going to be feeling better. Flamethrower getting a major boost though, because 1.5 seconds knocked off the cooldown. You're going to be casting it out more, and it has more damage over time, but the mobility and effects of Fire Punch still pretty strong to have. But Fire Blast also receiving major cooldown reductions as well as a slow increase, so now you can actually throw out that Fire Blast, combo that into the Flamethrower, and then your auto attacks are just going to stick and be a lot better. Flare Blitz remains untouched, but it's also a pretty strong move on Charizard anyway. It pretty much depends on the playstyle, and I think Charizard's success is mostly going to be reliant on you making good decisions. Look at your team composition, look at the opponent's team composition, and then decide what you need to do. Do you just need to cast Flamethrower from a distance, get some burn, get some effects on them, maybe use Fire Blast for some damage and zone control, or do you need to actually shift to a melee-ish Pokemon, get in there with Fire Punch, get in there with Flare Blitz, and really mess people up? So now you get a bit more done before you need to use your Night move, and that could make a lot of difference. After Charizard, we have Cinderace, and man, did they hurt Cinderace with a 10 to 15% base attack damage nerf. Also, Blaze Kick getting nerfed, Pyro Ball getting buffed to offset the damage decrease that Cinderace has, and Feint not being invincible for 1.5 seconds, only being invincible for 1 second now. So I think there's more of a argument between Pyro Ball and Blaze Kick. At first, I recommended Pyro Ball, but Blaze Kick turned out to be the best option to use anyway, because getting in there didn't really affect Cinderace since Cinderace had crazy damage and was just crazy overall, and after Blaze Kick, you get to kick people, do a lot more damage, faint out. It was a little too safe, and it was a little too much reward for how safe it was for how much damage it does. But now you can actually kind of choose what you want to do. Do you want to be safer, since you don't have the free damage and free out of Feint, or do you still want to be aggro with Blaze Kick and try to capitalize on the most damage possible now that you have lost a significant amount of damage? I still don't think Flame Charge really has too much viability, and even though it's a significant nerf, having an AD carry go invincible for even 1 second is insane, and you should always be picking it, and you should always be playing around it. Use it to dodge a skill shot or crowd control, and that makes all the difference. But again, now it's not free. You need a bit more skill to use Cinderace optimally instead of just getting carried by abilities and base stats and crazy stuff like that. Now, even though Whirlpool was nerfed on Cramorant, it's still a really strong Pokemon, and Whirlpool upgrades at level 6, so it's not a part of your final moveset decision. Doesn't matter that Dive got buffed, Surf is still the 100% take on Cramorant. Same thing for Hurricane, and because of the Whirlpool nerf, if anything, there's an even stronger case for Hurricane now. So Hurricane was always the 100% pick, but now there is no way you can argue against it because you need the crowd control in lane to offset your Whirlpool weakness, and also just to be as strong as possible in lane and scale harder into the late game. Air Slash, just useless. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't really matter if you pick it. you're just kind of throwing games on Cramorant for no reason. Hurricane Surf, still the 100% pick on Cramorant. Same thing for Crustle. There's only one moveset you should be taking if you want to win games. Rock Tomb is trolling, Stealth Rock is trolling, so you should only be going X Scissor, Shell Smash, especially because Shell Smash is just better than Rock Tomb. You run past the opponent, you X Scissor them into the team, and then you're just a wall of hate and unstoppable CC because X Scissor is ridiculous. Also, X Scissor can crit, Scopeland's Crustle is new, insane, A+ tier stuff. I showed it off in a video. Check that out in maybe description, maybe a card, wherever I end up putting it. I also have a massive Pokemon Unite playlist with everything about the game, so if you check out that playlist, I guarantee you will get better at Pokemon Unite. Now, Eldegoss is where things get a little weird because of the major nerfs this Pokemon just received. As I talked about in my last moveset video, Leaf Tornado was rising in popularity, and it just got more and more popular from there. Does a surprising amount of damage, and being able to use that speed boost to get your team to chase down enemies, kind of like move around or set up team fights really well, pretty strong. Also, after taking Zapdos, just having that to rush to a goal to secure more scores, also really strong. But now, Cotton Guard has been massively nerfed with a cooldown increase, also less healing from the shield, so you need to be better about how you use the shield for Cotton Guard, but Cotton Spore also having a lot more viability now because of the buffs it has received. So things got pretty mixed up, but now that Cotton Spore is definitely viable, as long as you're choosing Pollen Puff with Cotton Spore or Cotton Guard with Leaf Tornado, you should be good to go. And I think Pollen Puff Cotton Guard also has increased priority now because you're getting less healing from Cotton Guard, so you can't only rely on Cotton Guard for your primary healing ability. I think it was something like 40% less healing overall because longer cooldown plus the less shield to heal conversion. Garchomp. Nothing has changed about Garchomp, so Dig, Earthquake, still viable. I prefer the Dragon Claw, Dragon Rush. Some people are kind of mixing it up on the moves that they're using, but just Dragon Rush, being able to scoop up someone, Dragon Claw, short cooldown, lots of damage. It's strong, and since nothing happened with Garchomp, yeah, I think it's still going to be effectively the same. Now, I'm going to be playing Garchomp later today as a part of my live stream series where I just really learn all the cool things about every single Pokemon. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, make sure you know when I'm going to be streaming, and also you can check out the VOD and the eventual, like, gameplay guide I'm going to be doing. Oh, so we're really going to see where Garchomp lands by the end of today, but I still think, like, Dragon Rush, Dragon Claw is the way to go, but we're going to try out Dig Earthquake and see what happens. After that, we have Gardevoir, so Psychic is just bad. Moonblast is the 100% pick because that stun is insane, and then you cast it at like super long range. That opens up a Future Sight or even some Psyshock, and between these two, I think they're both viable. It depends on your playstyle. Do you want to be a bit more plotting? Do you really want to kind of set it up? Future Sight, land it, reset the move's cooldown when you get that successful hit. So now you're like Gengar, where it's like Gengar at range with the Future Sight, but it's not as insane because it doesn't happen instantly. You still need to plan it, you still need to set it up, and if you miss, you lose out on a major amount of DPS. I really like Psyshock, mostly because it just feels so satisfying to go like, boom, 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 once you get that down. Also, Psyshock encourages mobility and being able to like move and mirror your opponents to keep them locked in. So both of them, crazy amounts of damage. Psyshock is very satisfying, and the way the numbers break down is that Future Sight is effectively 1.5 Psyshocks, so if you're regularly getting 2 Psyshocks, but like landing 1 Future Sight and missing the other, then Psyshock could be better. If you're getting all 3 Psyshocks, it's like 2 Future Sights, but if you can consistently land multiple, then Future Sight is the way to go. Also, Dreadnought and Zapdos, they can't move, so you can keep resetting Future Sight there and making the, objective fights kind of crazy, but that only happens at level 12. So not really feeling that until the last 2 minutes of the game. Psyshock is just going to be stronger earlier, and since you're weak for so long on Gardevoir, having that Psyshock online when you become Kirlia, yeah, that's also going to be really nice to have. So it's mostly going to come down to playstyle and personal effectiveness, but these are both viable, and yeah, Moonblast is going to be the way to go on Gardevoir. Gengar, even though Shadow Ball Dream Eater was buffed, Sludge Bomb, Hex. It's still a lot of damage, it's still crazy resets inside the AoE, but maybe like Charizard, you need to kind of look at the opponent's team composition. Since you lost iframes on the Hex, it's easier to CC and get knocked out of. Also, if they just have more tankier Pokemon, you're not going to be able to blow them up as reliably. Or high mobility, meaning that's going to be not as reliable to get Sludge Bomb, Hex on multiple people. That means Shadow Ball, Dream Eater now viable. Shadow Ball receiving a massive damage increase, so you can really just get onto one person with the Shadow Ball, follow up the Dream Eater, get the Shadow Ball reset. They're hurting on the special defense, and you can start like melting tanks with this, since Hex doesn't really do that as much anymore. Or you can just like completely remove one person from the game, and then you can kind of keep setting that up. Also, Shadow Ball Poke feels a bit better. If your team needs a little bit more range, a little bit more poke, Gengar can set that up, then go in on the Dream Eater. I think it's going to be pretty cool to see what players end up picking up or what playstyle opportunities emerge. But I think, yeah, now it's not just like mindless Hex Sludge Bomb. If you think about what's going to succeed the most and you get practice on both, then you're going to be a very efficient Gengar player. Greninja. Surf, Smokescreen, only way to go. Double Team is really weird because with the targeting wheel, you can just kind of see through it. Also, if you're already attacking them, it's still going to stick onto the original Greninja, and the clones act pretty stupid, so Smokescreen is the way to go. I did a guide on Greninja, so you can check that out on how to make the most use of it. You don't want to use it as an escape tool. You don't want to use it as like an, oh no, I just got blown up in the fight, I gotta use Smokescreen. If you're using it late, you're using it wrong. You really need to kind of be like optimizing it. Also, you get your empowered auto attack from it, so you want to go Smokescreen into them as long as they're kind of at low health. Use your percent health passive melee attack, dash in on them, and then surf through them, and that's going to be the best way to get the efficiency out of that. The reason why I say don't use Water Shuriken, never use Water Shuriken, is because it's not a lot of damage and you can't auto attack during it. So it's effectively just giving you auto attacks that can miss, but it lets you move around while using it, but that also just kind of can make it a bit more inaccurate. Water Shuriken just doesn't give you anything, and even landing all of your Shuriken, Surf is going to be the same amount of healing, if not more, and has the chance to reset. Now, the Surf reset isn't like super reliable, but being able to reposition the fight with damage, and even if like you don't get the reset on Surf, Surf into an auto attack, that's usually an execution, and then you can just kind of like reposition, play around it a bit more. It's the secret to Greninja. If you want to get really good with Greninja, especially now that it has more opportunities with the Cinderace nerf, you want to go Surf, and then you want to master Surf, try to get those resets. If it doesn't happen, you're still okay, and then Smokescreen. Once you master both of those abilities, Greninja is really strong. So that brings us to Lucario. Don't pick Power Up Punch. Power Punch isn't the way to go. It's fraudulent. Extreme Speed. Mastering Extreme Speed is how you get the most out of Lucario, because you become impossible to hit, and you get so much resets that you're doing insane amounts of damage. Also, you're healing while resetting, so what we want to do is Extreme Speed them, hit them with a Bone Rush. Hitting an opponent with Bone Rush actually resets their ability to get dashed on with Extreme Speed. So go Extreme Speed, Bone Rush, Extreme Speed on one target, and then you can go like Extreme Speed on two targets, hit them both with Bone Rush, Extreme Speed, reset to Bone Rush. It's absurd. It's ridiculous. I have a guide if you want to see it in action. It's pretty crazy. Also, the activation on Bone Rush wasn't doing damage, but Close Combat was really never a pick anyways. It was always Bone Rush. And even though Power Up Punch was like overperforming because it was literally bugged, even before the bug fix, Extreme Speed, Bone Rush, this is the way to play Lucario at its best. Machamp. So, it's interesting. Cross Chop did get nerfed. I recommended Close Combat because it's just really strong, but people started picking up the Cross Chop, and we're getting pretty crazy stuff done with it. It's not just kind of like personal preference. Cross Chop still viable, didn't get nerfed under Close Combat. Close Combat was seen as less than Cross Chop, but if you were picking it, now there's even more incentive to do so because Cross Chop is slightly weaker. People are just kind of going into like critical hit builds and stuff with it and making sure you stick on them. Playing a more ability focused Machamp still works really well. It just comes down to your Night move. Pop your Night move, you kill like half their team, and then you're good to go. Submission, still the best move. If anything, it's even stronger now than people thought. You hit level 5, you immediately run on someone, you yoink them, then you just do whatever, and they lose. They don't get to play Pokemon Unite. I knew Machamp was strong from the beta, and it took people some time to catch on to that, but yeah, like, Machamp's still a pretty strong pick. Now we get into one of, if not the highest skill cap characters in the game, and that's Mr. Mime, Psychic. There's really no reason to be picking Psychic. Even if you get the overlap and the stun, it's not as much damage as Confusion into a wall, barrier, or guard swap target. This is just the insanity. If you actually take the Confusion push for the bonus damage, it does like half or even more than half of a Squishy's health. So Mr. Mime just has insane lockdown, and like good prioritization with the Confusion is where Mr. Mime goes crazy. But now I'm gonna say guard swap is a viable pick. I was like, you shouldn't be using guard swap, it's just weird, it doesn't make sense. But nah, if your only goal is to guard swap an enemy and hit them with Confusion, yeah, that's actually better, and I find it to be much more reliable than Barrier. Also, the really low cooldown means you get to do whatever you want to them. Guard swap them, that lines up a Confusion, they're stunned, you hit them with auto attacks. Guard swap also adds a bit more DPS to it. They get knocked up, you guard swap them again, they're dead. Also, if you have Showtime, you land a Confusion stun on someone, hit them with Showtime, that's a KO, you run into the other 4 people, you stun them up, you got guard swap and Confusion back off cooldown. So you're able to reliably just remove people from the game, or just do insane amounts of damage, which really opens them up to getting KO'd easily by your teammates, and then you're just like prancing around being ridiculous annoying in fights. So like, I have guard swap over Barrier right now because Barrier just feels too inconsistent. It's weird to place. I think it might have been like from the buff they added a bit more delay, or like a lockout from setting up Barrier and then using Confusion. Barrier also feels a little slow to set up, so it's not reliable. It's not like Barrier, Confusion, instant stun an entire team, or even like 3 people or something. It doesn't really work that way. And also, the Confusion push into Barrier isn't super forgiving, so sometimes you can like hit someone into the barrier, but you hit it at a weird angle so you don't get the Confusion stun. It's kind of like push them alongside it. Sometimes you like push them through the barrier as well. So maybe if you spend more time than I did, I spent a few hours really trying to figure it out, and I could never get it consistently no matter what control settings, no matter what I did. Maybe when mobile comes out, people just get better at barrier. Maybe if you're like an insane Mr. Mime main, you can always get it, but I've just seen like guard swap to be super reliable, and also lets you get to the people that are staying outside of your barrier range. Long range casters like Gardevoir and Pikachu, barrier has actually like a pretty short range, so you're not gonna be able to trap them in with barriers and then line up a shot onto them. Also, there's a lot of mobility, so people can like move around and not let you line up the barrier shot anymore. So guard swap just lets you use your tankiness to run up to someone, hit them with guard swap, and then completely lock them down. And again, I just find that to be more useful for the insane damage, and then the reliability makes it even better. So barrier still has like some viability, but I don't know, it feels too clunky. It doesn't work super well. And yeah, while you can like set up barriers and block people out of Zapdos, they can just use launch pads from the top or bottom, or they can just kind of play around it for the most part. So that's going to be one of the biggest changes and biggest reasons for me making this video update on the movesets, because guard swap is just ridiculous. Guard swap Confusion, I'm recommending that more than anything right now because it does absolutely filthy things. Alolan Ninetales is effectively going to be the same. Dazzling Gleam, Aurora Veil is the 100% pick, because you set up Aurora Veil and then you just do empowered auto attacks. You set up that freeze super fast. You just stun multiple people in a team fight for the Dazzling Gleam. That also puts another stack of freeze on them, so then you freeze them again, and it's just crazy. They're stunned. Level 11 also comes online pretty quickly, so longer stun duration into another freeze. Yeah, like, you just keep people perma-CC'd, and it's ridiculous. And Ninetales, as I talked about in my tier list video earlier today, it's the only S tier left in the game after all the nerfs, and yeah, it's ridiculous. Also, the laning is crazy, but those are the basic abilities, so that doesn't really change too much. Pikachu, Thunder. Thunder, Electro Ball, like, the cool thing about Pikachu is everything is viable. I consider Volt Tackle slightly less viable, a bit less viable than Thunderbolt, but not like, oh, you should be 100% picking Thunderbolt. Thunder in a coordinated team or with a high CC team, like, if you just get Thunder on multiple opponents that are stuck, it's absurd amounts of damage. But also the range and sure hit on Electro Ball, just disgusting as well, and then leaving them paralyzed, it's silly. Now, Volt Tackle gets you in there and does a lot of damage, and Disruption is super strong in this game, but being able to stay at range, like, cast Thunderbolt, cast Electro Ball from range, just kind of spam out some of those abilities, because the 5 seconds on Electro Ball, really nice compared to the 8 seconds on Thunder. Electro Ball, Thunderbolt, kite around a bit, Electro Ball, Unite move, Thunderbolt, Electro Ball. Pikachu does a lot of damage, but it's also like not the craziest damage in the game compared to like Gardevoir or Ninetales or the Assassins or the Talonflame buff or also Lucario and Greninja just being good. But I mean, like, yeah, Pikachu still gets a lot of work done, and not much has changed since the last video. Kind of pick whatever, as long as like it fits your playstyle, you're finding success with it on Pikachu, you're good to go. Slowbro. Never pick Scald. Surf just has too much knock-up. You know, if you get all those waves and you keep knocking them up and knocking them around, you can lock some people out for a pretty long amount of time. Then Telekinesis. Once again, you can just kind of CC them. Slow Beam, you really want to be using that to like knock Cramorant out of the ult or lock one person down. But overall, that's like what Slowbro does. It's not really a damage threat. It's just kind of a CC threat. And if you get in the way of Slowbro, like as a tank, you block out its Telekinesis on a primary target. Also has a kind of hard time getting in. It forces itself to int with the Surf. It's just a dopey Pokemon that doesn't really do much, but for the love of God, at least don't pick Scald. Then we have Snorlax. Snorlax has a 100% pick moveset that is Heavy Slam and Block. Too much CC, too much usefulness. Also, the block damage mitigation. Like, the more I pay attention to that when playing with as or against Snorlax, the crazier it gets. Also, depending on like what the opponent is picking, it's like, oh, they got Cramorant. Just set up a block in front of his ult. There, entire Cramorant ult neutralized, and everyone just gets to feel bad about it. Also, pushing people off objectives, bullying them into a corner, perma-stunning them. It's absurd. And then Heavy Slam, AoE knockup as mobility. For some reason, Flail is getting more usage. I don't know what idiot started that trend, but it's completely useless. Like, maybe it's kind of fun, but even then, like, it's just a throw. It's just a loss. Yawn, like, if you're picking it, at least you're not completely throwing away the game, but Block is just better in every situation. Now, Talonflame is where things get interesting because it received a lot of buffs. Acrobatics also getting a buff, not really going to be a part of the overall moveset, but since you are getting more damage, you have better ganks, better jungle clear, so you're getting to your levels sooner, which is pretty impactful. Fly is just better now. It's a lot of damage. It means like if you use it to dive into the right spot at the right time during a team fight, you have a bit more team fight power. I say it's on par with Brave Bird because Brave Bird is just crazy damage. Now, depending on like what you're doing for the rest of the team, you got this. Fly for also the crazy mobility over terrain, like getting to Zapdos, getting to Dreadnought, getting to a goal. Yeah, you can use that. Maybe like Fly's like 55-60% pick over the Brave Bird. Go and try out Talonflame in the next couple days and really see what makes the Pokemon shine. But Aerial Ace, it got a damage buff and then it got an Aerial Ace plus buff. So you hit level 11 sooner because your acrobatics and also just being more reliable and having more damage. Flame Charge is still kind of cool and useful, but Fly into Aerial Ace got so much of a damage buff. Again, now you have like AoE teamfight presence, and that is really big for the Talonflame. Venusaur. Venusaur also feeling kind of interesting right now. Solar Beam got a second removed off its cooldown, but since Solar Beam duration reduces as you get levels, it goes down to like 5.5 seconds. So Solar Beam, just have it a bit more. It didn't get a damage buff, but with Verdant Anger, now that could be enough to really set up executes or steals. So Solar Beam, a more viable pick, but I still think Petal Dance is viable, especially with Sludge Bomb. So like Sludge Bomb, Solar Beam. Also, Sludge Bomb receiving a significant buff. It does like 50% more damage, so you actually feel that. And then with one extra Solar Beam maybe, you really get to feel it. The effect was increased, so you're getting more damage off of the defense and special defense reduction. Giga Drain wasn't touched, so Simi, Bruiser, Venusaur did, like, it's kind of the same with like Petal Dance or something. I don't really see how Giga Drain Solar Beam like super synergizes, so still won't be doing that. And Petal Dance received a buff. Now it just says move upgrade. Doesn't seem like the damage was increased, so maybe got more movement speed, which means like Sludge Bombing someone and then running in on the Petal Dance. That's actually still pretty decent because they're taking more damage because of the Sludge Bomb itself and also the effect of Sludge Bomb. So Petal Dance is feeling more impactful, and then Verdant Anger buff just kind of makes it to where like now you're finishing KOs and you're doing a lot more damage. Yeah, Sludge Bomb, Solar Beam, I'm going to give it more viability. I think in the last moveset guide, I was like, yo, Giga Drain, Petal Dance, just do that and try to be as tanky and AoE and sustainy as possible. But Sludge Bomb, Solar Beam, back on the menu, boys. That leaves us with Wigglytuff. Absurd buffs. Wait, like, just tank now. I don't know why it's even classified as a support. Double Slap. getting a damage increase. Double Slap was always the 100% pick, but the damage fell off. But now it's like, hey, you still have good damage scaling throughout the mid into the late game. Dazzling Gleam, even though it got bug fixed, don't pick it. Not really worth it. Doesn't do anything. And then it's still a compelling choice between Sing and Rollout. Rollout can crit. And if you're running Scopeland, you have just a small chance of doing like 1,000 damage on Rollout. And as people play Wigglytuff, what I said in my last video still holds true. And now that I've gotten more time on Wigglytuff because of the buff, other people have gotten more time on Wigglytuff because of the buff, it's even more true than ever. Rollout is the pick. You want to learn Rollout so you can get the angles, you can see the opportunities. If they're just kind of in the middle of the lane, just bounce it between the two walls, and you can do some crazy stuff. Rolling around Zapdos fight, rolling around the choke into Zapdos, bouncing through the bases in the lanes. You do silly things, and now that Double Slap has been increased, Double Slap, roll out of a wall, knock them up on the way there, knock them up on the way back, Double Slap again because of the cooldown reset. You're just doing more damage. It's just absolutely crazy, more insane, and because you're tankier, the shield from Rollout is felt a lot more. Sing did get buffed. It's going to have a more powerful slow to really get them to stay in that Sing to fall asleep, and since Wigglytuff is a lot tanky, like, it's hard to describe how much more tanky Wigglytuff is, but because it's a lot tankier, you can really get in there and you can do that Sing reliably, but like a really good Rollout, I think ends up with more value than a Sing. But if you're playing like full tank Wigglytuff because you already have enough damage and you're going for like specific compositions and specific setups, then maybe. But I think like the skill cap here on Rollout is just way too ridiculous. And then you do Starlight Recital things behind a tankier, crazier Pokemon. Then we have Zeraora. So I will say, also much like Mr. Mime, my initial read on the best moveset wasn't correct. I thought Volt Switch was like the way to go. You just go Volt Switch, learn all like the cool jungle paths where you take something, you go back, you score. I was thinking there was also a lot more potential to like dash through someone, deal that damage, hit people, discharge AoE, dash back for an execute, reposition the fight, end up on like multiple targets. Now Spark is just too good. Unless it gets nerfed to like 2 jumps, it's just insane. And when you really get a feel for it, because like using Spark initially just felt weird and off, and like I wasn't getting the attack timings just right, because you can't go auto attack Spark, because while your auto attack is like still on cooldown, or while your auto attack is resetting itself, you don't get that extra benefit from the Spark, so it feels kind of weird. But if you have the patience and you just stick to someone with it, yeah, Spark, there's nothing they can do. And much like with Lucario, when that healing comes online, it's even harder to kill Zeraora, and since it's healing, it's getting more value out of its passive, so the higher skill cap play ends up being Spark anyways, instead of Volt Switch. Wild Charge getting buffed. Discharge not getting nerfed. So like, Spark, Discharge, it's gross, it's insane, it's ridiculous. Now, funnily enough, with the Wild Charge buff, I think that actually gives more viability to Volt Switch, because you Volt Switch through someone, you get the Enhanced Wild Charge, which is now even more insane damage. Also at level 14, it deals AoE, so you're getting like Discharge levels of damage. Comes online very late though, and because of Plasma Gale getting nerfed, like, you're not going to have as much secure on Dreadnought in team fights. You might not, like, get the crazy kill or crazy team fight pop-off that pushes you over the level, or over the edge when it comes to levels. But, I mean, like, yeah, now there's more viability. Spark Wild Charge, also crazy, since you can really stick to someone, Wild Charge them. If they mobility away, well, Wild Charge stays on them, and then that's pretty crazy. But, also another thing is, like, with Gengar damage nerf, Cinderace damage nerf, and a couple other things happening, it's like, well, if you're a little safer, like if you're just feeling like you're taking less damage overall, then that reduces the priority on discharge. However, Charizard damage buff, Venusaur damage buff, Absol damage buff, and other Pokemon just kind of like getting more optimized and efficient. Gardevoir is just in the game now, but if you get onto someone with Gardevoir, they're most likely going to miss their moves, so you don't need the discharge as much. It's actually kind of just like compelling to do whatever on Zeraora. Spark Discharge is the better moveset, Spark Wild Charge is viable, and then Volt Switch Wild Charge is the niche, and maybe depends on how the game is going for that move selection. And there we go, guys. I didn't think this video was going to take that long. I thought I was just going to run through and be like, these moves, done. For the most part, I did it with a lot of Pokemon, but again, things have changed from the patch notes or individual player discoveries and overall efficiency and proficiency increasing on certain Pokemon, where some things just need to be explained a bit more, and that's the list that we have. So if you guys enjoyed the video, hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.